Hello and welcome to another edition of the Am in View podcast with myself, Liam Innes, my co-host Jake Pointer.
Hello there.
And handsome panellists Thomas Fro, Owen Innes and Mr. Stephen Povey.
Hello there.
Hello.
As always, we're brought to you in association with After Extra Time Shirts, so jump over onto their Twitter page, that's at AET Shirts, all one word, for some wonderful content and links to some class merchandise.
This week we start with revealing who our player of the month is and why we have chosen them, and pick our favourite moments from that player in January.
We're also going to be joined by Mr. Livingston himself, Sir David Bingham, as we look back at the magician's career, as well as diving deep into his spell with the Lions.
And finally, we'll have a look back at our favourite games against our upcoming opponents, St Johnstone and Hamilton Accies.
So get yourself comfy and enjoy the upcoming content regarding Livingston's best and only professional football club here with us at the Am in View podcast. So, at the time of recording, Livingston have just finished a double header against Aberdeen with a 0-0 draw on Saturday and a wonderful 2-0 victory at Pittodrie this evening. Boys, have you got any sort of comments regarding either game?
Well, first of all, 2 clean sheets again. How good is that? Max is the man. Defence are the boys. John is the man. Brilliant. Although, Johnny boy, I can't believe your man, Liam. I'm going to leave it over to you. Mr. Taylor Swift himself. On you go.
Senor Aaron Taylor Sinclair stepping in. See, that is the difference, boys. Saturday, John Guthrie plays. Fair play, clean sheet, 0-0 draw, snooze fest. What happens tonight? What happens tonight? Guthrie, injured in the warm-up. Davy Martindale, Aaron boy, over you come. You're starting. Guess what happens? First victory against Aberdeen in 17 years, baby. That's what. One, have you got any comments about the games, either on Saturday or tonight?
Well, certainly about the game tonight, I thought it was very entertaining. Obviously, we were interviewing David Bingham at the same time, but Max again pulls off an absolutely fantastic save in the second half. It wasn't point blank, but what a brilliant save it was. Pitts is unlucky not to add a third kind of late on. Jet, brilliant. I thought he had his best game in a Livingston shirt today. Another classic Josh Mullen cross, brilliant header from Devlin, who I've maybe slagged off a wee bit in the group chat recently, but there it is. And Joe Lewis, cheers for 3 points.
To be fair, I've not seen any. Only a couple of the boys have actually seen the goals tonight, but I'm looking forward to Sports Scene because apparently it was an absolute howler. Any other boys? Have you got anything, Thomas or Jake?
I'm just delighted that we've broken our duck. Bogey team for the longest time. I think they're the only team that we've not beaten since we came back up to the Premiership. So, to get that out of the way is lovely. So yeah, delighted. Great result. Brilliant.
They've probably been the most frustrating team because every time we've played them, we've been unbelievable. And, well, maybe not unbelievable, but there was Povey mentioned in the group chat, the 2-0 game last season at the start of the season. And you were like, you left the stadium thinking, how have Aberdeen won that? Because we were all over them. I think they got a penalty in the last minute to make it 2-0. And then the first goal was extremely soft to give away. But, oh my God, there's been so many games against Aberdeen since we've come back up that have just been how have we managed to lose that?
Frustrating, Frustrating.
Povey, have you got anything else to add?
Just one more thing, just picking up on what Owen said there about that Devlin header. I mean, that goal was a beauty. And I think in the group chat, a couple of us had said, about it, he'd no end product in that. I know he scored against County away, but No, I think it's good for him to shut you guys up on that group chat about that end product, because it was a feature header.
You say use guys as if it was plural. There was one person,
That's
and it
true.
was Owen.
It was definitely only one person.
I just want to say this. It's just sort of highlighted up here on my phone. Liam is the master of Twitter without a shadow of a doubt. I just want to bring a tweet that he put out just a few days ago. Let me set the scene for next Tuesday at Pittodrie. 10 players run onto the pitch. The Livy commentator saying, who's the 11th man? Who's replacing? I'm going to insert John Guthrie here. The lights dim. Fog appears over the pitch and the Undertaker's music comes on. He's back. He's back. Super. ATS is back.
How did you call that, man?
So I just want to add that one. You fucking called it,
Well
son. You
said,
fucking
well
called it.
Martindale saw that tweet, by the way, and he was like, I'm going to make that big sexy bastard very happy.
Martindale just pure halved John Guthrie on the way through the tunnel at Pittodrie just so he could play ATS.
Let's move on to our player of the month. So, boys, January is finally over. 2021 is well underway, and David Martindale's team of dreams have steamed through 2 months unbeaten. As January has passed, it was only appropriate for us here to choose our player of the month. And we are delighted to say that the winner of our first ever Almond View podcast player of the month for January 21 is Scotty Robinson! Mr. Povey,
Shagger.
can you tell the audience what is Mr. Robinson has won himself this month?
Well, our January player of the month. So, Mr. Scott Robinson has won a Glary Years temporary tattoo of a proud lion to show how proud we are of him. And as well as that, he's won his an Almond View podcast certificate, which, you know, this is one of a kind of certificate. So what a good boy you are, Scott. We hope you enjoy your prize.
Well, you can obviously see we do not fuck around here. We reward our players of the month with prizes. Don't see any other West Lothian-based football podcast doing that, do we, boys? No. Right.
No.
So let's just talk about why we chose him. Thomas, why did you choose Scotty?
I just don't think you can look past him for his performances this month. Really, he's just been unbelievable, pitching in, kind of assists, scoring goals. Obviously, scoring good goals. He's been absolutely fantastic and been such a focal point around this run that we've been on. But it's continued this month. So yeah, it's just been unbelievable. Kind of what we've been hoping to see for a long time, because he gets himself in. He's always got himself in good positions and he's always worked really, really hard. But to see him get the reward with the goals and the contributions it's been unbelievable. So yeah, that's why I chose Scotty. What a player.
Owen, what are you saying?
I mean, and even in the first podcast, you asked me what was my memory or my highlight of January, and it was Scotty Robinson. There's nothing more that you can say. I think he's for such a small player, he wins balls in the air. He's so intelligent. Like, he's probably the most intelligent footballer since probably David Fernandez, just off the top of my head, that I've seen playing for Livingston. He's just, he can pass the ball, he can head the ball, he can shoot, he can score, and I think he's really come on leaps and bounds this season. Obviously showing what Hearts must have seen in him as a sort of a young kid, 16, becoming the youngest player to play in the Premier League in Scotland. So yeah, I think he's just been absolutely phenomenal. When he's on the pitch, you know that he's going to give 100%, and if it was possible to give more, he would give more than that as well. So that's why I chose Scotty.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Povey, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it really could have been a number of players, and got Pittman. I've been banging on about Max. But really, it was that when he got his noggin at the end, put that ball in the back of the net at Hampden. He was really the only option, wasn't he? That was so important. He's kind of put himself in the history books, and I really hope he can deliver in February and hopefully get a cup final goal to really put himself in the history books. So, delighted with how he's been. long may it continue.
Aye. I mean, I will say this, and I know I've spoken to you boys a lot about it, and I was never a fan. Like, as we know, Povey, you put me in my place completely, but, I saw Scotty as a super sub. It actually pissed me off when we started him. And I mean, yeah, he's done absolutely amazing, not to pick negatives. I don't think he's got a great left foot, but look, he's been absolutely phenomenal up front. And I was speaking to someone the other day who was telling me they actually played against him when they were a lot younger, and he actually did play up front, and that was when he actually came back to the midfield. But he did play up front, and he's just doing absolutely amazing. I love him a bit now, and I completely take back everything I said. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. But there was a time where I don't think his decision making wasn't great. Yeah, he was kind of putting himself in good positions and just messing things up. But what a turnaround, and he's been absolutely phenomenal this season, and I think he's brilliant. Liam, what do you have to say about the man?
To be fair, I voted for Aaron Taylor-Sinclair. She's not my man. I think probably just echoing what everyone else has said. He just doesn't stop, man. Like, that's the thing that gets me, is that he just doesn't ever seem to. He's always just at 100 mile an hour. And I mean, the effort that he puts. I was critical, pretty much echoing what you were saying, Jake. I was pretty critical of him before that. I loved how much that he would commit himself, and I would love that he had so much effort. He would try 100% every time, but there was just something, especially when we played him up front, he was just so wasteful at times.
Yeah.
Like previous seasons. And then, I don't know if it's... I remember the goal that he scored back in December against St Johnstone away, and it sort of got played over by, I think it was Josh Mullen, and he was one-on-one with the keeper, and he sort of just like side-footed it, slid it into the bottom corner, and I was like, that's not Scott Robinson. That's like, Scott Robinson would take too many touches and he would just blast it straight at the keeper.
Yeah.
He didn't really seem as if he was didn't really be that one step ahead that you sort of need to be a striker, I don't think. But ever since then, and particularly the 2 goals that he's lifted over the keeper, and I mean, following up from it was the fact that he won the initial header in the semi-final. Like, I don't know, it's just like he won the initial header and he was just so alert. Whereas before, you just don't know if he would have that natural instinct, but goals breeds confidence, and he's in the team all the time now as well, which I think is sort of the main thing, because he was a bit of a squad player before.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think it's hard to argue that he has been a massive sort of focal point of our turnaround. And yeah, that's why he sort of half got my vote. This is one of the most surreal moments I think any of us will ever have. We are now joined by Livingston FC royalty. He is the club's record goal scorer, and if you ask any non-supporting Livy fan who they associate with most in this Livingston team, it is the next guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to announce that we are joined by Mr. Livingston himself, the one, the only, apart from the one that plays for LA Galaxy in the MLS, it's Mr. David Bingham.
Yeah!
Good evening. How are we doing? Hey, now we could fall out with that song.
Right, actually, sorry, straight from the off, right, I want to ask a quick question. Now, we were told last week by Colin McMenamin that you hate the nickname Bingo. Is that true?
Yes, it's not my favourite. I've been called worse, a lot worse. But yeah, where it originated from was Dick Campbell in my time at Dunfermline, and he did it just to annoy me. He knew fine well, because I've known Dick a long time, come up against him a few times, and he would only call me it to annoy me, and it did. But as you get older, you mellow and you try not, you pick your moments to bite back, and it depends who's calling you as well, because obviously as a manager you're not going to say anything. But if it's one of your teammates, and depending on how you're feeling at that time, there could be a bit of retribution somewhere during training. But as I say, I've learned to live with it. Sometimes I just sort of, my ears are big enough that I can ding it, So, but yeah, it's not my favourite nickname. But as I said, I've been called a lot worse.
Not by us, not by us.
Oh, you might change your mind by the end of this.
All right, we're gonna start off with pre-Livy. So you started your career with St Johnstone and made a handful of appearances before making the move to Forfar, where you scored an impressive 44 league goals in 99 games. You took a step down to move to Forfar. Were you apprehensive about doing so, or were you confident that it would be the right thing to kind of like kickstart your career?
I think I got to the stage at St Johnstone where I was only getting an opportunity towards the end of the season when they were safe in the Premier League. And I was coming at the end of my contract, and unknown to me at the time, Forfar had been in for me a few times. The manager at the time, Tommy Campbell, happened to be my reserve manager when I signed for St Johnstone, so he knew me. I'd worked alongside him, and when I took the decision to move, I think it was 92, I spoke with a number of people, but I thought, well, how much development can you do or can you have playing in the reserve league every Monday night and maybe the odd game with the first team when they're safe? And I thought, well, I didn't really think I would be offered a new contract in the summer, and it was a chance to take a step back, but hopefully with the ambition of taking two forward. So, and it turned out to be probably the best move that I've made, because I don't think I would have had the career that I went on to have. They gave me the platform. If I'd just stayed and sort of seen my 6 months of my contract out at St Johnstone, I may well have drifted out the game, or maybe not had the opportunity to go and work with Tommy at Forfar, a guy that knew me. And the club have nothing but great memories of my time at Forfar.
You were then picked up by Dunfermline, who paid a whopping 100k for your immense services. Now,
don't believe everything you read in the paper about when it comes to money.
Okay. You know? All right. Oh well. So maybe it's slightly different, but according to Wikipedia, let's hope this is true. It might not be. You are from Dunfermline. Was that one of the main flag to join the Pars, or were you
well, 6 months prior to Dunfermline, I actually went on a 3-day trial to Grimsby. Believe it or not, at the time, we're a top six in the Championship, as it was then, was sort of second division. It was that long ago. It was pre-Premiership, and I had a couple of days training there. Unfortunately, red tape meant that I couldn't play in a reserve game, and they did want to sign me, but I think my wife and I were either just about to get married, or we were just about to get married. I just didn't think it was the right deal, so I just stayed at Forfar with no kind of idea that I was going to get an opportunity to sign for Dunfermline. But when that come, that was one of the things at the back of my head. Well, Dunfermline boy, ironically enough, the day I signed for Dunfermline, the week before I moved to Edinburgh. So, but it was always the intention for my wife and I to move to Edinburgh, because that's where she's from before we started the family. It ran so close to each other. But St Johnstone actually came, or they were the other club that wanted to sign me, but because of a clause in the contract, they were entitled to a percentage of the transfer fee, which meant that they could offer double anybody else and only have to pay half, because they would keep half. So I really didn't want to go back there, because I didn't know that I left on good terms with the club. I mean, as I say, there's no bad feelings, but I hadn't had the impact that you hope when you go full time. And I didn't really see what was the benefit from going back. Yeah, it was a different manager. I think it was John McClelland was possibly the manager at the time, ex-Rangers player. So I dug my heels in for me, and I was quite prepared just to sit to the end of the season. Bear in mind this was September, so it was a long way to wait, and just leave on a free. But I had a great relationship with Tommy. He tasked me when I signed, and I had done well for the club. And it was actually, I think my stats were 110 games and 52 goals all in, which for someone that's not a natural striker, they got a good sort of deal out of it. You know, they got me on a free. We won the 3rd Division Championship, and then they got money back. I think it was the money was roughly around maybe 65 grand, from what I'm led to believe. When I moved to Dunfermline. So that was the story around that. I kind of dug my heels in because I didn't really see what was to be gained by going back to somewhere where I'd already been. Plus, Dunfermline was my home club. And I did. It's a big club. It's a huge club, you know, and when you're in the club. And I used to go to some of the games in the late 80s under Big Jim, when they first got into the Premier League, and the crowds, the potential for crowds were phenomenal. So that was the story behind that.
So in 1998, you made the switch to the upcoming Amber Machine under the stewardship of Ray Stewart. Could you see in the early days the potential of the club, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of this was because of what happened the previous season. Missed out, but it was either you needed a point or you needed to win, and you got a point or you got beat. That meant you didn't get the promotion. So Dominic Keane obviously meant business as time evolved. You seen the money that he put into the club and how it grew. And I've known Jim a long time as well, and he sort of pestered me. Because I had obviously other options. I spoke to Jim and I had a look around the club, and at the time it was just still the one stand, but vision was there, and he told me that obviously Raymond Stewart was coming in as manager. Now, I'd worked with and Stoke reserve boys in the afternoon, and I loved his training. It was pretty modern. I got on well with Raymond and with that standard in the Scottish game. And I think the icing on the cake was, at the time, they were going to try to get me Robbo on as well as a player coach, and I'd got to know John through playing against him, and always got on really well with him. So that signalled their intent, where they wanted to take the club. And it was, as I say, it was a long way moving to Forfar. It's as good a decision I've taken in my career.
So you just mentioned Robbo there. What was it like kind of working with him? Because he's just scored over 200 goals with Hearts. You know, he's an amazing player.
Yeah, and again, I've been fortunate subsequent to obviously be coached there, but also play alongside him at Livingston for not for a long period, because John was coming to the end of his playing career. But I've also worked under him at Inverness, which is great. You know, I don't think there'd be many other managers, if any, that would have travelled to Inverness to play for, other than John and Donald Park, his assistant. So he's a really decent coach and a good manager.
In your first season, you finished top scorer in the league with 11 goals.
How many was that? Sorry,
11 goals.
11, right. No, I'll take your word for that one.
No, you're allowed to dispute it, man. You're allowed to dispute it.
I've got my calculator with me, you know. So I'll be adding them up because I know what the total is. So,
so we ended up winning the second division, and then we're battling out for the title with Cataly, but obviously we beat them. How did it feel having, you know, instant success for the club, you know, as a new signing and just proper hitting the ground running?
I think it kind of justified the decision to come, you know, and it was a great award for Dominic Keane and the people behind the club. It was ironic, that game we talked about, I mean, what a start. I think it was 4 goals inside 20-25 minutes, but I didn't see the end of the game because I went up for a header with another ex-teammate at Forfar in Inverness, big Bobby Mann, and that was the end of my game. You know, it was ever a mismatch that's Bobby Mann and David Bingham. So I spent the rest, I think it was either just on half-time or just after half-time, I spent the rest of the game, I think, with concussion. And they had a fantastic support down as well. So the noise that they made when it went to 4-2 and 4-3, I thought it went 5-1 and 6-1. You know, so it's maybe just as well I wasn't there. But it was brilliant, and I think it showed the potential of the club and Inverness to that extent. I still watch a bit of that game on Facebook or YouTube, and the standard of football is phenomenal. You know, I mean, you forget the players, even back in the second division, there's some good players there. The goals, the build up to the goals on both sides, and you're thinking, God, sometimes you just don't appreciate how good the standard is. Just because it was second division doesn't mean it can't be good standard.
Aye.
And there were some great games in that, but fortunate that one, for obvious reasons, was one that's been recorded. And it's always nice to look back. Well, certainly the first 20 minutes is good to look back on.
Okay, another stat checker for you. The following season was another impressive season for both yourself, finishing top scorer again with 15 league goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nay?
No, sounds about right, yeah.
And the club finishing in 4th place. But Chairman Dominic Keane made the decision to sack Ray Stewart in March, despite an impressive unbeaten run of 8 games that brought 7 wins in the period between November to the end of February. How did the squad feel about the pretty ruthless sacking of a manager that had brought the team such success from the season before?
I think the longer you're in the game, you realise that nothing should surprise you, because that was a hell of a first division that year. Because I think St Mirren were there, I think possibly Falkirk, and maybe even Dunfermline were there, I can't remember. But there was 3 or 4 good sides there, and there wasn't any shame to finishing there. But obviously, if you're ploughing a lot of money into a club, you can see why it'd be maybe, I wouldn't say failure, but it'd be a disappointing season. And in fairness, he made a decision like that. Again, the older you are, the more you realise that a lot of managers get hardly any time, and there's no room for sentiment in football, unfortunately, in the modern day game. But it still came as a bit of a shock, because see, you have a league title and you finish 4th in the championship. A lot of managers give their right arm for that. It's not a bad record. So, but as I say, you could say they're ruthless, but they had a goal to take the club to the Premier League, and as I say, that was deemed as not acceptable. And if you're the man that's putting the money into the club, then you can make any decision that you want.
So then he made another big decision. Jim Leishman took over with Davy Hay. Can you talk about kind of what they were like to work with? We had Colin on last week, and he was talking about how they're kind of like good cop, bad cop kind of situation.
I think they complemented each other. And I think thrown into the mix, Robbo was there as coach as well. You've got somebody that's just coming out the game, so his ideas are sounds horrible, more modern. Well, Jim has a habit of the knack of surrounding himself with good football people, because he knows what his strengths are, and that's no saying to Jim anything that he doesn't know. Davy Hay, standing in the game, is unquestionable. He's a guy that, as I say, you know where you stand with him. He'll no lie to you. You might not like what he says, but as I say, that's the kind of manager you want. There's somebody that'll know blow smoke up your ass. So be honest with you. And if you didn't like it, well, there's the door. But Davey was great with the players. We had some great times there. We often, during that season, I'm sure that season we won the first division, we had sort of midweek breaks after training to sort of Dunoon or Saltcoats, or Seamill, even up to Carnoustie, with great team bonding sessions. So they knew how to get the best out of the players, and they did complement each other. Davey and Robbo would conduct most of the training. Jim would be on the periphery, 5 minutes with the phone at his ear, but he'd come alive on a Saturday, and I think that's what he's done at most clubs he's been at, because he knows what his strengths are. His motivating players come when it matters, and that's on a Saturday. Davey and John's coaching styles were probably, I wouldn't say polar opposites, but they complemented themselves really well. And as I say, Davey's got a great knowledge of the game from playing, but also from managing one of the top teams in Scotland as well. And it was a great season. Ultimately we won the league, so you didn't get any better than that.
It's just kind of talking about that again, about winning the first division, because you also reached the Challenge Cup final and a Scottish semi-final.
Yes.
Could you kind of believe what was going on? Was there a huge hype towards it, or?
Yeah, well, I think that the longer that season went on, and because of the players that we subsequently brought in, it was going to take a good one to stop us, and ultimately we had the strength and depth to get us again over the line against some good good teams there. I think Airdrie were unpredictable under the Stevie Archibald regime, and subsequently we picked up probably two of the best foreign players that have ever played. Well, probably the two best, along with a couple of other boys that have played for Livingston, and certainly my time. Losing the Challenge Cup, although it was just the Challenge Cup, I fucking hate getting beat, and especially on penalties, but it becomes a lottery, But Airdrie had a good side, on their day, because they drew 2-2 with us that season at Almondvale as well, and Fabrice Moreau, so Antonio Calderon scored one of the best goals I've ever seen from a corner, flicking the ball up over somebody's head and volleying it in the top corner, and I'm thinking, fucking hell. I mean, you're thinking, wow. And that, but then they could go out the following week and get beat off the bottom of the league team. That's probably why they weren't challenging, whereas we could lose games, but we didn't lose too many. And I'd be very surprised if we lost more than or games back to back, because we had the best squad. And I always say you don't get any lucky teams winning leagues because of the length of the duration of the season. You'll finish where you deserve to finish, and if you're top, that means you're the best. The semi-final against Hibs was really disappointing because I thought we had the right chance here until 90 seconds in. And we're 1-0, got to say John O'Neill. And I went on to play with John at Gretna for a spell, and a great lad, but again, he was a phenomenal player. Really, really good player. So that was disappointing because I don't think we did ourselves justice that day. The priority was the league.
So that season, we just seemed to kind of just sign the competition. Most notably, we signed Steve Tosh, Alex Burns and Marvin Andrews. 3 of them scored in a 4-0 victory at Almondvale. And also we signed Fernandez, Brotto from Airdrie, and then also David Souza from Cali. It was clearly the right decision due to the success. But was there any concerns with the squad getting bigger and the new signings joining constantly? Or?
Well, if there was, I didn't see it. I think it comes down to the management team. Everybody felt included, and such was the strength of the team. If you didn't play, you weren't guaranteed to get it back the following week. Such was the standard of player coming in. And at times you could have. I mean, you're talking about the players we signed in. I'm pretty certain. Did we not sign? Oh, not Barry. Come the following year, was it Barry Wilson? Because we brought in him and Mark McCulloch. You look at the boys we brought in from Falkirk, Crabbo, David Hagan, God rest him, and Marino Keith. We had a squad of probably about 22, 23 players, and if you split the squad down the middle, probably our toughest game, if it was a competitive game, would be against the 11 that weren't playing. Such was the strength and depth that John and Davey, they had the money, so they've invested and they've weakened the rivals, taking Tosha and Big Marvin and Toasty away for Wraith. Then they're not going to hurt you because that's the spine of their team. Taking away Crabbo, Marino Keefe and Davy Hagan, that's probably 3 of the best attacking players at Falkirk. You take away Brotto for Airdrie and Fernandez, they're not going to hurt you either. So you can see the logic, but they obviously seen players that they thought could take the club to the destination they want to get to, and that was the Premier League, and that's how it transpired.
Well, the following season, arguably the greatest season the club's had, and just only going for 8 years, and we're in the SPL. What were the expectations placed on you by the gaff at the start? And was there just an expectation to stay in a division, or was it to kind of push on and even go higher than that?
I think I've done another interview a couple of weeks ago, and it's almost 20 years past since that. So things can get a bit hazy, but I think first and foremost, obviously, they brought in. I'm sure that's when Tino came in, Rubio came in, Brian Kwan came in, and Gary Boland came in. Stuart Lovell came in. But unfortunately, some boys fell by the way. But that's football. But even with so bringing in like a Hibs regular like Stuart Lovell, again, signifies the intent by the club, bringing in these boys from Spain. Rubio had started off at Real Madrid. Nobody hadn't heard of him, or Francisco. I didn't mean that disrespectfully, but you look at the pedigree from where they start, and you're thinking, well, I'd like to think we'll fucking stay up, and that's first and foremost, because coming up from the Championship or the First Division, every club that's done that, maybe apart from the reborn Rangers and fucking Hearts and Hibs, most clubs just want to stay in the Premier League. Sorry, I didn't mean disrespectful, but people think they're the same club.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
That's exactly content.
So ultimately, your aim is to stay in the league. And again, if you look at the first 4 games of that season, home to Hearts, I think it was away to Rangers, or I can't mind. I get the Rangers and the Celtic games mixed up. I'm not sure who was second. It was either Rangers away or Celtic at home, and then somebody in between, possibly Kilmarnock. But we go to Ibrox and get a draw. Should have won. I've had to post my header with a couple of minutes to go because fucking Zouza gets in my way. And well, that's what I'm saying. It was a bad miss, but I'm just saying Dave didn't get out the road quick enough. We've had a draw against Celtic, played the last 40 minutes or whatever it was with 10 men after Gary got sent off. And that Celtic team then went midweek to Amsterdam and battered Ajax 3-1. So you're starting to get a sense of we maybe should be looking a wee bit higher up. But you're only 3 or 4 games into a league that you've never played in as a club, so you don't want to get above yourself. But I would say come the end of the year, when it was clearly evident that we were more than capable of staying in the league, that you start to think, well, maybe we should be thinking top 6, because we've played everybody by then, barring the Rangers and Celtic. There's nothing really to be frightened of if we play how we can play, or whoever's picked that day. And again, I can't remember if the management have spoke to us, because it was about 20 years ago, but as a player myself, I can remember thinking, well, why should we not be thinking about finishing top 6? Because we're not going to get relegated, so there's a lot of pressure off there, because even if you went on a horrible run, we were that far, or were that many points between us and bottom, that we to me, we had no danger of getting relegated. Unless you were like a racehorse and one of your legs fell off, but that was never going to happen because of the strength of the squad we had. Top 6, that should be the least, or the lowest we should be aiming for is top 6.
I've heard a wee story about that season. I was speaking to Stuart Lovell after Keegan's testimonial, and he told us that when they were negotiating the bonuses at the start of the year for the players, the chairman at the time just didn't want to talk, didn't even sniff at what the players had put forward for the top 6. He only wanted to negotiate the bottom 6 ones. Is this true? And I guess so because Stuart told me about
Archie. Well, listen, I wouldn't dispute anything Archie he said, but I can't remember him bringing that back to the squad. But that's not to say it didn't happen. I will tell you a story about going back to the Championship winning season. That season we won it, the club offered 2 bonuses. One was a weekly bonus and a smaller bonus for winning the Championship. Still quite substantial, or a fucking lottery bonus just for winning the Championship. And it was whoever the senior, I think I was there, a couple of other boys, so we took it back to the squad and put it to a vote. And unfortunately, the gamblers amongst us got fucked. So we unanimous boys wanted to keep the weekly bonus and a smaller bonus at the end of the season, which was, when you see how the season transpired, the differentiation between what we earned with a weekly bonus and a championship winning bonus to the jackpot was pretty significant. So it was a wee bit fucking miffed at the end of the season. But as I say, I wasn't the only one. There was, I think, have you seen the one that voted? You would ken who the gamblers were in the club. And you would ken all the ones that were had the ball and chain round their ankle with their wives. But that was just when you're talking about the Premier League bonuses. I only remember that because of what I lost. But listen, you looked after us in the Premier League as well. Let's no beat about the bush. The club didn't make a fool of us, but I thought we deserved it and we earned it. By our achievements that season. Sorry. Before we move on, I was going to, because we've moved out the Championship, I'll tell you about the Moonboot story. So, this is classic. Now, Barry, I think, had got injured, maybe in the second. We'd won the league, and we'd booked to go to Magaluf, and he was coming away, but he had this isolation boot, so it was just to keep his ankle in isolation. So. The second day in, and as I say, it's the days just run into nights and days when it's like nobody sleeps. So I don't know if any of you have ever been to Magaluf, but I've been a number of times, and when I was at Dunfermline as well, there was a place called the Winning Post. It was a pub stroke bookies, and it was it's a mecca for all football players that like a punt because it shows the racing and that. So we left Barry. I was sharing with Tosha. That was it. We were, and Tosha put on the Moonboot this day just for a laugh, just to garner sympathy of people. So it was just me and him because we went back to our beds. That was it, rough as fuck, and then we'll sleep it off for the next day. And after a couple of hours, he said to me, "Fuck it, come on, we're just going out." Aye, that's fine. So he takes the Moonboot, puts it on, and we got a taxi down to the Winning Post because it's at the opposite end to where we were staying. So he puts it on, and we hobble in to he hobbles in, pretending to, and it's fucking absolutely stowed, And this couple get up, see us coming in, see him hobbling in, right in front of the telly. Get up and say, "Oh, listen, boys, you can sit there." "Oh, that's, are you sure? That's awfully good of you." And Tosha's just winking at me. So we sat there for about 4 hours. The only time we got up was to go to the toilet. Drinks brought up to us, and can just signal to the barman, we drink and that, settle up at the end of the day. And as we're saying, we'll just go home. Tosha takes the Moonboot off and just starts walking out. Oh man, there was daggers aplenty. straight into a taxi and up to where the rest of the boys were. But that was brilliant times there. We had a really great team spirit there. It was evident in the First Division and the Premier League. But that was the story around the Moonboot.
That's amazing. So just the last couple of things about the first season in the SPL. Mm-hmm. So you scored your first goals in the SPL against St Johnstone, Dunfermline. Did it kind of feel different scoring in the SPL compared to the second division, or how did you describe it?
A goal's a goal. I don't think my game's ever been defined by scoring. Yeah, I think my game's as much about creating as scoring goals. There's not a greater feeling than either scoring a goal or, as I say, I take as much pleasure out of setting any of my teammates up. But it's in the top league, and you always want to test yourself in the top league. And up until then, I had a fleeting introduction at St Johnstone. I played a couple of games. I did score a couple of goals. Same with Dunfermline, because I joined them when they were in the First Division. Mm-hmm. You've seen a pattern here, eh? You want to get promoted, bring in David Bingham, But so again, I got injured in that first season. No, I beg your pardon. I got injured at the end of the Championship winning season, so I was kind of behind the rest of the group at Dunfermline. But when I got in, I scored a few goals, not a lot, and a regular since the second division days. And after seeing boys like Derek Fleming, Charlie King, Paul Dees falling by the wayside, you're just glad to still be part of it, because you're talking about good players here as well, eh? And that's talking about managers. They were ruthless with players as well. But that was the nature of the game. But yeah, to get the goals it's always nice to score your first in the Premier League with the club that you're with. Yeah, I can't remember them actually. I remember the one at East End. Yeah, I think me and Barry. Was it me and Barry scored 2-1? I think we won.
Yeah,
That's right.
There, actually.
Aye, that was great because it was I had a love-hate relationship with a lot of Dunfermline fans.
Of course.
I loved that game and they hated it, you know.
Well, last one from me. So obviously we got into Europe, beat Hearts 4 times, beat Rangers and Aberdeen. What was the sesh like after that? You know, after that season, what was a big night out like?
Now you're talking. I don't think we went. Did we go abroad? I honestly can't remember. But I'll tell you a funny story about. I think it was a Christmas. Was it a Christmas night in Newcastle?
Right.
And this typified. I can remember this because of the story I'm about to tell. I think it was the first time, obviously, we'd been away with all the European or the overseas players, and most of them spoke English. But at that time, Keno was still a bit pigeon, you know. But brilliant lad, always involved in the pranks in the dressing room, and we were out. That was it. It's a Saturday night. I think we went down after maybe a Motherwell game or something. And we were staying down on the Sunday as well. And we found a hotel, so we all went for a meal at the suggestion of the Italian or the Spanish players. They're more sensible than us. We just wanted to go right to the fucking pub, you know. But we all went for a meal. And then you kind of splintered into different groups because different cultures, what they do post games or nights out is different. So we're heading back at the end of the night. I'm walking back with Archie, possibly Zouza, maybe. And I'm walking on a bit towards him. I see at the hotel. And as I'm getting to the front door, I see Keno at the corner of my eye. Says, Bingy, who are you with? I say, Archie and Zouza. Okay. He brings out this mask and puts it on. It's like a horror Halloween mask. And he was like, shh. So I just carried on to the front door. And I wasn't that far away. And I'm watching. I'm just like I'm waiting for Archie to come. Fucking Keno jumps out on him. With 2 doors. I've never seen Archie fucking pale so much in my life. And he was like to go boxing with him. And Keno brings the mask off. And I think Archie needed a couple of whiskies when we got in. He fucking shot himself. But that typified the kind of spirit we had, and everybody had taken to Keno anyway, because of the player he was, most importantly, but just a really nice lad, really, really brilliant laugh. But that kind of summed up the team spirit we had. I thought, you know, whether you're in the team or you're out the team, you know, the club, as I mentioned earlier, we frequented. We went down to I mentioned it in Grant's podcast. We went to Seamill for just a break. We told no drinks, and it was near Christmas. I think that was a year before because Jerry Britton was there. It was a story about Jerry Britton. And we were in the bar. There was Christmas parties going on. Weren't allowed to drink. They had a karaoke on, and fucking out of nowhere, Jerry comes up with fucking Funky Cold Medina, stone cold sober, never missed a word. I'm like, fucking hell, Jerry. No, Jerry actually the clown at times, but he's a very intelligent guy. He's a fucking lawyer, yeah. But it was like just so unexpected, and it was brilliant because I quite liked the song back in the day. It was sort of late 80s when it was out, one of the first sort of hip hop tunes. But it was brilliant. And then with the other one was up to Carnoustie, and I think there was a game that night in the reserves. And I remember Toffia knew where he was going. And I remember him sitting at the front of the bus. I was like, where the fuck's he taking this bus? It's nowhere near Carnoustie. He's got the bus doing this sort of dead end street because he kent there was a William Hills at the bottom. we piled off the bus into the bookies for half an hour.
What the hell, man?
Things you just didn't think you would get away with, but with a great management team that just went with the flow, and Davey and Jim. Listen, as long as you were training, as long as you were doing the business on a Saturday, I wouldn't say anything goes, but they turned a blind eye. You know, there was a great harmony within the squad. It was just really good times. Really, times I look back in with a lot of fond memories.
That's brilliant.
Oh.
Well, certainly the ones I can remember, anyway.
So there was a bit of uncertainty at the end of the first season in the Premiership. And it looked as if you were set to leave before finally the club seen sense and extended your stay. But the club struggled to regain the form that they had that season, and they finished 9th in the 02-03 year. However, the club had its first and only, so far, dabble in European football. Now, obviously, it's your job, like you're a footballer and that, but did you ever just sort of take a step back and think, like, what are we doing? Like, live here in Europe? This is just stupid now.
It was probably because I made my mind up to leave. I was just disappointed with what they offered me. And I again, it wasn't falling out with anybody. I just thought, I'll just go and explore other options. And I had a couple. and John had moved, I think we Rob had moved up to Inverness, Well, that was that season, sorry, I beg your pardon. When Jim phoned me again, it was probably because I'd never played in Europe before. Well, at least no since my under 21 days with Inverkeithing. But so it was probably the thing, because I hadn't experienced European football, it was a thing that sort of clinched it for me. They gave me a wee bit extra money, still just a 1 year deal. I was 32 at the time, so you can understand the length of contract. It wasn't an issue. For some bizarre reason, I was on the bench and started both home legs. Maybe that tells you what they thought about me in the away legs. Fucking man doing. But I thought the first game over there, and it was so picturesque. I don't know if any of you guys went to Vaduz. You know, I think you landed in Switzerland and you have to, was it Belgium? I can't remember. But we landed in a different country and you have to travel to Liechtenstein. But it was so picturesque. We thought that the pitch was actually quite long. It wouldn't suit the way we played, and we scored first. And all said and done, they weren't a great side at that time, because I think they've obviously improved. But coming away with a 1-1, you're thinking, we've a wee chance of getting into the next round here, And we did, thankfully, because of the referee's whistle in the return game. But it was just, I think we hadn't experienced the whole kind of build up, going to the airport on, say, the Monday or the Tuesday, whenever it was, wee bit of training, taking in the game, coming back. And it's things that other teams take for granted, the bigger teams. But when it's a more provincial team, they didn't come along very often. And as I thought, make the most of it. And to get the chance to go into the next round, and who was it? Sturm Graz we drew, I think.
Yeah.
And again, they probably weren't the force that they had been, but they were a step up on what we'd just faced, and that was evident in the first 45 minutes over there. I was kind of glad to be on the bench until Davey says, "Get a script, you're going on for the second half." I'm like, fuck's sake, Davey, what am I going to do? So I take the credit for making it 5-2.
My next question was going to be not about the away leg, because I think, most supporters have forgotten about that, but the home leg, highlights are on YouTube now, right? And I have to say, the most notable thing in the highlights is that you seem to be involved in everything. Like, it just seemed as if you were determined to get it up.
I need to watch that, because I genuinely can't remember. Obviously, you're talking about 17 years ago since the game, but I remember how fucking close we came, because we went 2-0. Was it 2-0 up? We went in, and I think we had a chance, obviously, to make it 3 just on half time. And this is the difference between playing against good counter-attacking European sides. Is either it was a misplaced pass in their box, and 4 passes later it's 2-1, and that's how the game can turn. And that was really disappointing. But then, again, we gave ourselves a chance again. And Barry's can rocket as well. It was just a shame that was the end. But I tell you what, I think the punters got their money's worth that night, because it was a hell of a game. And as I say, they weren't the best European side, but I think if you've seen the first 45 minutes in the first leg, they were fucking miles in front of us. The pace that they played at, the technical ability. We all think we're good players, And I think that 45 minutes, because it's not as if we didn't try. We just couldn't get near them. I couldn't get near them because I was sitting next to Jim and Davey. I was thankful of that day for half time. But it just shows you the difference. You may think that you're technically very good until you come up against people that are technically better than you, and that's what you've got to aspire to, But it was a great experience, and I think the fans would have enjoyed a short experience, but the chance to maybe go and watch their team, and with it not being a pre-season friendly or a pre-season tour, actual competitive game in Vaduz and then to Graz in Austria in the Arnold Schwarzenegger Stadium.
Well, I mean, see, to be honest, like my younger cousin down in England, he's mad about football, and like he's always asking me questions about Livingston and that. But see, when I tell him that we played in what is now the Europa League, he just doesn't believe me. He's like, nah, there's no chance of a wee team like that.
I'll have a pint of what you're drinking. Again, it's because it doesn't come along very often, and you've got to make the most of it. You've got to savour it, and for the experience that it will, because unfortunately that it's not a given, and we just you went on to the season after that, or that season, sorry, the league-wise, we finished 9th, and everybody struggled, but that's not uncommon for teams coming up to the Premier League for their first season. Nobody knows that much about them. There's a sort of play with a wee bit of freedom, but then you finish third. Where are you going to finish after that? It's nigh on impossible, because invariably you're going to lose players, because your better players will get cherry picked by the bigger teams. Just like what happened to Livingston the last couple of years with Kelly leaving, Halkett leaving, Gallagher leaving. But it's credit to the management team just now that they've replaced them with good players, and it's been seamless. But that doesn't always happen.
I remember these 2 games I'm about to mention sort of really vividly. It was sort of my first season of going to games, really. But you scored your last goal for the club in a 2-1 defeat at home to Dundee United. And then a week later, you made your last appearance, but were made captain for the day against Hibs, which was another 2-1 defeat. But
I thought you sorry, on you go.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, like, were you disappointed to sort of end your...
I knew I was leaving. Leaving. And as I say, I thought it was time just for a fresh change. And as I say, it was that Christmas, I think we Robbo had got the manager's job up at Inverness. And I think we had a couple of drinks at Christmas. Shocking. A couple of drinks at Christmas. Just as I sort of leaving, and all the players were there. And I had a chat with John, and he mentioned, he says, you fancy coming up next year? And I said, well, if I don't stay in the Premier League, I says, yeah. Because I knew he'd got Donald Park, and Archie spoke in glowing terms of working under Parky at Hibs. And I thought I would taken my first steps into coaching as well. So I thought, well, perfect people to learn from. But I knew I was going to be leaving. I thought it was a great gesture by the club to give me the captaincy in the last game of the season, and I got a nice send off for the fans and my teammates as well. Only thing I would say, I wasn't too pleased with Jim and Davey putting me wide left against a young Scott Brown. I thought that was fucking bang out of order. What became of him anyway? He struggled to make it in the game, the boy. But but yeah, as I say, it was. I look back fondly, maybe less so in the last season, just because it was a struggle personally, but also the club. But we survived. We had the 4 games in Europe, which is something that, as you say, it's on YouTube, so fans can look back on, players can look back on, can just to remind them what was like back in the day. But I just thought it was time for a change, just to work for somebody, work under somebody different, go to a different club again. But when I walked out, there was no fallout. It was amicable. I've been welcomed back under different managers. As I say, it's the longer you're in the game, nothing lasts forever. Whether you're a player or a manager, everybody's got a shelf life. I just thought it was time for both parties to go. I'm not saying Jim would have offered me a new contract anyway. He's a miserable 5 bastard anyway, But I'm only saying that because I'm one. But no, as I say, and again, leaving, and going to Inverness, it was proven to be the right decision, because I went on to get a bit of success with Ayr, Gretna, latterly, just to show there was a wee bit of life left in the legs yet. Again, had to take that step down, but that was maybe my level at that time at 33. Just maybe taking a step down and playing and enjoying it. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but when you're struggling and your form's struggling, you're in and out the team, you didn't enjoy it as much. And I sort of challenge any player to say that they enjoy sitting on the bench or in the stand. It's not nice. So going to play with John, I knew I would play more regularly if I was doing the business. And as I say, it was a good move for me at the time. But the 5 years I had at Livingston, as I say, I look back on with great memories, because it basically made me the player that I was.
I mean, I've got a couple of questions about your post Livy career. Obviously, you touched on when you left to go up to Cali Thistle, and it was the right decision, because obviously you got to. I mean, Cali got Scottish Cup semi-final against Dunfermline.
I still got fucking beat. I'm just a jinx when it comes to semi-finals, I think.
But what I found interesting about that was the fact that back then it went to a replay, and then so you had the game at Hampden Park, and I think it was 1-1, and then you had to play them a few days later in Pittodrie.
Yeah.
See, because the replay was at Pittodrie, like, what was the sort of feeling in the squad? Because obviously you had that moment at Hampden, and then it was getting finished off at, like, no disrespect, we're there tonight, but like, you're having to play.
I think if it's a midweek, it's a sensible thing to do, to play it there, or somewhere. Listen, you could have played it at Perth. That's probably been the most sensible thing to do, because 10,000 sellout would have generated a great atmosphere. There was maybe 6,000 at the Pittodrie. So you bear in mind, Dunfermline have still got 2.5 hours. We've still got 3 hours across from Inverness. So, but it still made more sense than taking it back to Glasgow. But either, as I say, Tannadice, Perth, Dens Park, something like that, with a slightly smaller capacity, would have probably generated a better atmosphere. But I mean, all said and done, it's still a semi-final. There's still a hell of a lot at stake, and it's just, as I say, it's just unfortunate that it didn't fall for us on that night. But you've got to bear in mind, Dunfermline are a real good team at that time under Calderwood, with Brewster, Crawford, Gary Mason, Barry, the ex-Rangers player?
Barry Nicholson.
Barry Nicholson, Greg Shields, Big Toddy. A right good Dunfermline side. It was a hell of a game. The 3-2. Was it 3-2 the replay? So again, good money's worth, but it's just unfortunate that we happen to be the losers again.
Well, I mean, so obviously you won the championship with Cali that year, but you decided to sort of step down again, as you said, down to Gretna.
Yeah.
Was there an opportunity to stay with Cali in the Premiership?
Yes.
Or so what did entice you to
John,
Gretna?
why I left, and is it that season I spent at Cali, and I say I enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed my time at Livingston, Forfar, some of the time at Dunfermline, but I didn't cover myself in glory due to lack of form, injuries and that. But at the time, come November of that season, my wife was studying at uni, and this 2-year-old laddie transpires he was later diagnosed with autism, and we're having a real problem with him. Not with him, but just as he grew, and we knew there was something wrong, but there was an issue with some part of his health. So I went in to see John, because at the time this was my week. Everybody trained at 1 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, because a lot of the boys at Inverness were from the Central Belt or Dundee or whatever. So if we were at home on a Saturday, everybody went home, and Robbo, we all trained later, so everybody could come up in the Monday morning. So we would travel up in the Monday morning, train. I would stay over, and we'd train Tuesday. I'd come home. We'd get Wednesday off. Then I'd leave my house on a Thursday morning at 6 o'clock, and I would stop at Ballinluig, just north of Perth, and at the services, and I would sleep for an hour with a balaclava on overnight, and then set my alarm, and then I would finish my journey back up, train, stay, train Friday. If we were at Inverness, I would stay Friday. If we were away from Inverness, I would come home on the Friday. The stage where I'm either going to fucking crash the car, but I needed to be home to help my wife because, as I say, she's trying to do a full-time degree. So I went to John, and again, I've played under managers that wouldn't have entertained this, and it was his suggestion. John came to me, and bear in mind, obviously I went back to Livingston with John, teammate, coach. He knew my family, he knew my wife, and he says, this is what we'll do. Monday, Tuesday, you train at Livingston. He says, come up on a Thursday, train Thursday, Friday. If we're at home, stay Friday. If we're away, get back down the road. And I says, that's better, because I didn't want to leave. Because boys were great, you know, it's a beautiful area. So I says, all right, I says, that would help me, Robbo. I says, but what would the players say? And bear in mind, I'm no 2021, I'm fucking 33, so it shouldn't really matter what somebody thinks, but it just took me aback what he came with. And this stays with me to this day. And I think it marks somebody doing is how to manage people. And it's not about coaching, it's how you manage your players. He says, if you're happy off the park, he says, we'll get the best of you on the park. And he says, and let me worry about the players. Now, I don't know if any of the players moaned about that, because what I've just said to you, that wasn't common knowledge at the time. You know, I didn't discuss my family business with anybody at the club, but I knew John, who was my manager, but he knew me personally as well. Yeah. And that spoke volumes of him, that he was, and I'm not saying he would do that for somebody else in a similar position, but I fast forward to my time at Gretna, and I was out with chronic fatigue for 11 months. Yeah. And the manager at the time made me travel every day, and all I could do was run down the track for 20 minutes before I was fucked. And I went into him one day and just said, well, listen, you fucking pay me up or let me train at Livingston. And just so I'm no travelling 2.5 hours to run down the track. Basically because the man didn't trust me, or he didn't trust players, whereas Robbo had trust in his players. And that's the difference between man management. Somebody that can trust their players and somebody that doesn't. And that's why he's been more successful in management than this other manager. You know, so from the November, I would train Monday and Tuesday at Livingston. Now, bear in mind, I think it was Biscuits was the manager at the time. Paul Hegarty was taking the reserves. And I knew Heggie from my time at St Johnstone, because he came to Dundee United there and he took the reserves on a Monday night. And Biscuit says to me, he says, we train at about 11 o'clock because the young boys train first. I says, no, I says, I'll just go and train with the young lads. I says, I'm not what to get involved with. I says, that's fine for me. And it meant I got home quicker anyway. But the young boys were Snodgrass, Dorrans, Scott, Gegan, Gary Irvin, you know, Jimmy Scott. Fucking, so some right good players, you know, and I loved it. It was so refreshing, you know, and I still keep in touch with Snoddy to this day. And I loved, and I learned a lot for Heggie as well with the coaching as well, because as I say, I was doing my B licence at the time. But it meant that I didn't need to worry about travelling after a Saturday to the Thursday. And that to me is how you manage people. You get the best out of them. Yeah, you might have to make sort of exceptions to certain things, but if it means that your team stays together and that player benefits from it, and then he's able to transform or transfer that to the park. And as I say, it wasn't just down to me that we won the league. We had our front three combined age was 100. Me, Paul Ritchie and Barry Wilson at the time. So you couldn't say we're in the first throes of youth. But we had 4 boys in the middle of the park. They were all 22, 23 at the time. They were the legs. And they had a back 4 of Golobic, McCaffrey, Mann and Tokley and Mark Brown in the goals. Didn't change that much. And we were lucky, and it was a really good squad, you know. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. And as I say, I'm still welcome back when I go up to visit Barry for a couple of games and that. And a really enjoyable season, culminating in this time winning the Challenge Cup and winning the league as well.
Right. What we'll do is, before we get your Dream 5 aside, we'll sort of open it up to the other boys, because I know that they're like wee school children waiting for a question. Povey, you've got the best question, I think, so far. Dear. So
there's a story I've got from the season we were in Europe, right? And it was down outside the stadium. And this guy's become a bit of a regular Sharif Tarima man, right? I remember watching you train, and then I think he wasn't passing to you or something, or he wasn't passing, hogging the ball, and then you just flipped out at him. And since then, I've just started a whole. I think the training session stopped and everything, But I've started this whole. For years, I've said Bingham hates Sharif Tarima, man. Pass it on. So,
I wasn't his biggest fan.
Was this a regular thing then, or was it? Did I just happen to see that one incident?
No, listen. I've been like that since I was a kid, my old man stopped coming to watch me win because I would fucking moan, especially at referees, But listen, I've had my run-ins with lots of players, and as I say, but once it's finished, I never hold a grudge, but Sharif came with this reputation, again, never heard of him, and the boy could play, you could see that, but again, it was just... He wasn't adverse to trying the impossible, when it comes to kind of training. And he scored listen, I remember he scored a decent goal at Motherwell, I think when we won 4 or 5-1. Was it? Did he get a goal or two? But in training, listen, if I let off steam in training, it means I didn't need to let off in the house. If somebody's not passing me, I'm not just going to say, going to pass the ball. If that doesn't work, I'm going to be a wee bit louder. And Robbo sent me for bugs for moaning, So I can't remember that incident, Bovey, but I've no doubt that it happened. Probably on more than one occasion.
That's what I thought. No, cheers for that.
I just wish I could remember it. Maybe bring a wry smile on my face.
I've got it integrated in the head, man. It sounds brilliant.
You'd probably have to bleep it out if it was on YouTube. There wouldn't be too many pleasantries anyhow.
Owen,
you mentioned something just sort of popped into my head when you were talking about that the Keno prank. Mm-hmm. So mine is kind of a double question. It's the same question, but a kind of double question. What was the best prank that you ever saw at Livingston? And then what was the best sort of dressing room prank that you saw at any club that you've ever been at?
I don't know if you remember, with a couple of Argentinian boys, centre halves, Julian somebody.
Julian Medana.
That's it, aye. I mean, you could see it. The wrong word and he would lose his shit, but actually decent enough fella, And at the time, there was a rumour going about that his missus had been done for shoplifting. And I don't know if it was true or no. Whether it was shoplifting or she just forgot to pay, means the same, So, came back, we were training in Astroturf, and I came back injured, or had to come off an injury, and went back round to the changing room, gathered up a bench, and gathered up all the players' trainers and that, and put them up there, and pretended it was a shoe shop. Left it there till I came back. So I never seen the funny side of it. So maybe there was something in it. I don't know. I don't think anybody was brave enough to own up. Oh, Forfar, and again involving myself and Alan Morgan. Alan I played with initially at St Johnstone, then at Forfar, and Alan went to Partick Thistle. He's a Livingston boy, actually. We won the 3rd division. This isn't a prank as such, but we were on a night out, fucking day night out in Tenerife, and our gaff was away up the water park. It's about a 2-mile walk for the Veronicas. So me and Morgan were last to leave, or we were walking up together. And we got back, and it was like, must be about fucking 8:30 in the morning. So when we started the walk, it was dark. When we got back to our gaff, it was actually light. And we come to the end of the street, and I thought, I better phone the missus, because she'll be going to her work, I'm getting in, she's going to her work. And then, so Morgan thought, that's right, so I'll go and jump the phone first, and there was only one phone, so it was a row of shops and houses, and at the end was like a amusement arcade, and all the shutters were down, but there were some machines outside, and one of these air hockey, and so I just said, well, I'll just wait here till Morgan, I'll just sit and I'll lie back on the fucking air hockey till he's finished. What seems about 5 minutes later, I thought it was Morgie pushing me here. It was the boy trying to open up. It was fucking 12 o'clock. Morgie had come off the phone, seen I was sleeping, and just left me.
Oh no!
It gets better. It gets better. So I've apologised, and I didn't even phone my wife. Actually, I'll get down to the apartments, and we're walking down the stairs, winding round into where the pool area, and there was a couple of pool tables. Morgie huddled up asleep as well, because obviously whoever he was sharing the room with wouldn't have let him in. So don't drink too much. Don't drink too much here. But brilliant times. I think that was probably the first club holiday I had that we had experience, and again it came at the back on the end of us winning the 3rd division, and with a great bunch of boys, probably about 94, 95, a great team, and most of them were there, which helps. And there was a lot of other teams there at the time. I think who else? Rafe Rovers were there, Hamilton was there. It was like a who's who. Everybody ends up at the same place, but no, it was a great funny side of it now, but to be on the butt of it. But then Morgie got his aim back on himself, falling asleep in the pool table. But listen, there's probably more. Some that I can't talk about, but other ones that are probably this side of clean. You could, but I can't remember them. Unfortunately, that's what comes of getting old, boys.
No, that's brilliant. I don't know if I just want to say as well, I don't know if anyone else noticed, but Colin McMenamin is actually still part of our server. He claims he can't get off of it, so he's asked me to pass on a message. He says he absolutely loves you.
Oh, perfect. Aye, listen, he's a better goal scorer than me. Listen, I done no bad. I done no bad with teammates that over the 5 years. Too many to mention, and you'll soon find out when the trouble you've caused me trying to pick this 5-a-side team, man. Because this is going to cost friendships.
Just one more, and I think it's just generally just because. I mean, see when we announced David Bingham's on the podcast, I mean, that's everyone's saying you won't get any better than that, you know. It's clearly loved by everyone. And I suppose it's a question like any sort of favourite fan interactions and that you've had. Like for me, obviously, some of the times we went on the pitch if we won I remember when we won even the 2nd division. Being at Forfar. Absolutely. I mean, that for me, that was my first pitch invasion, you know, at the end. And Inverness away, another one. And
brilliant.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you can pick out any sort of fan interactions that come to mind. If it's a pish question, you can just say, nah, it's all right.
No, listen, the thing is, I'd like to think that as long as somebody's not trying to be smart or that, I like to think that I've given my time to speak to fans and that whenever it's practical and whenever it's possible. I've never knowingly ignored somebody or no signed something. I think they're the people that you want to entertain. So I think you've every right to have a couple of minutes chat about. As I say, as long as they're not trying to be smart or nasty, if it's genuine, then I don't think there's anything wrong with spending time with your supporters. Or for that matter, opposition supporters as well. Again, I don't mind, a bit of banter, as long as it's, friendly. Classic story, this one's just come to mind, and this is as close to a white ghost I've ever felt. So, at Livingston as well, I don't know if you remember a game, I think we played Partick Thistle, I don't know if it was in the Scottish Cup, at Thurhill, and we either won 1-0 or 2-1, or anyway, we won the game, and Robbo was still there. So Robbo was good friends at the time with Andy Gorham, for the goalie. So I'd travelled with Robbo, and I was going back with him. He just said, "Listen, we're going to meet the goalie at a pub in Glasgow." And that's fine. I thought, I've never met him before, but it'd be great. So Big Ian McAlden was with us, myself and Robbo, and one of Robbo's mates. So we head over, I think, the Kingston Bridge, and I'm like, where the fuck are we going? So then he comes off Kingston Bridge, and then we're heading for fucking where. I'm like, fucking horrible. We're fine. So we pulls up. We're meeting at a pub called the Grapes, and I thought, Grapes? I've never heard of it. It's in the shadows of Ibrox, so we parked the car up and we're walking in, and I don't know if Rangers have been at home, but it was absolutely heaving. And we walk in, and that's when it dawns on me. First picture you see above the bar is a picture of the Queen. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell. Oh, fuck it. So I made sure I stuck close to Big Eagle for obvious reasons. But here. So he met, they're waiting on Andy Fordham coming as well, because I think Andy Gorham and him were good pals and that. So Dougie was saying, he obviously knew Robbo's pal knew a few of the guys in there, and said, what you want to drink? Well, for a pint. So Eagle was going up for the pint. I said, I'll come with you, big man, in case you need a hand at the bar. I was man marking him, and I could feel the eyes burning on the back of me. So we go back, have a drink, and then go to the toilet. I just say, I'm needing up to the loo. I was bursting there. So I'm in the toilet, and again, you can feel boys either side of you. This boy just says to me, oh, Bingham, are you not a terrier? I'm oh, fucking hell. And I think that's Robbo's mate came in. He's all right, he's with me. So we went back. So the next thing, he goes, I'm going back up to the bar. I said, I'll come with you, big man. Just I feel safer that way. And so it gets another round. And as busy as the pub was, it just happened to be the same boy. So we turned, and as we turned to start walking, the boys burst into me, and I've dropped a pint, smashed there, and the place went silent. Apart for this bastard that was in the pub with me. See, he's fucking panicking, boys. That's the closest I've come to wetting myself. But just at that time, Andy Gorham walked in the doorway, Andy Fordham, and we had a laugh, and nothing happened. And just as we were leaving, the goalie says, "Oh, bye." He said, "Listen, you're welcome here anytime, mate." He says, "I appreciate that, Andy." He says, "But I'll never be back in here in my fucking life again." Oh.
Yeah, I've got a wee thing. So I went down the stairs last week and, was squealing that we were interviewing this week and really buzzing because, it's my main memories of going to the games with my dad when I was really young and, but right back at the start. And as Povey said, the pitch invasions and everything like that, it was absolutely fantastic. But Derek Fleming used to live just across from my house, directly across it. And my mum and dad said to me, they were like, yeah, David Bingham used to rock up a lot in his car, blaring loud music, and he didn't make himself too popular in the street. So I just, my dad will definitely listen to this. So I don't. Do you want to? If you want to apologise to Mike for waking him up, I'm sure he'll love it.
I do apologise, Mike, but I was obviously easily led by your neighbour. God, what a memory! I forgot about that. I'm actually, I'm probably shortly going to fall out with Dale, or he's going to fall out with me when he sees my team.
Yeah, we asked you to come up with your dream Livy teammate 5-a-side. Right. So, let's hear. Who have you got? Right.
Well, I'm not actually going to play myself because I just wanted to get another person in. I'll put myself on the bench. That's how great a teammate I am. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
No, it wouldn't be easy to drop you.
No. But before I name the team, I'm going to just a wee list of players that didn't make it would be on the bench. If I was allowed to name a substitute bench. Obviously myself, Big John Anderson at the back, because John was a great playing centre half, great lad as well, funny guy and great servant for the club as well. And then we Fly as well, because I contemplated putting him in, and you'll see why I didn't when I read the team. But I played alongside Derek at Dunfermline as well, and we were good socialising buddies as well, as your dad will testify. But also, we mentioned him at the start there, Alec Burns, another fabulous football player. He was only there briefly, but I'd played against him when he was at Motherwell as well. Oh, technically very, very good. One of the best I've played with. Archie as well. He just loses out. It was very close between him and who I'm going to put in. wee Chucky King as well. Charlie was a great player, kind of in the old Division 2 days, you know. And Makes, I played against Makes, but I played with Lee Michael. Again, great player, great ability on the ball, really nice lad as well. So you can see why it's caused me a few headaches. But I actually contemplated no going with a goalkeeper, but the guy I'm going to put in is as good as a sweeper anyway. In Broto, you know, he was never short in confidence, but he's just probably the best keeper I've seen with a ball at his feet. I've only ever seen him on a full park or training pitches, maybe 60, 70 yards. So what he'd be like in a 5-a-side park, when he can't arrow balls 40, 50 yards, I'm not sure, but I'm taking it on trust that he'll be able to find a 10-yard pass. So, but his best shot stopper that I've played with, or had played alongside, and played against him when he was at Airdrie. I didn't go for an out-and-out defender. I've put in Keno. I put in Keno there as a sort of defensive midfielder, but the players I've put round him, you'll see why, because they could all rotate, you know. So Keno, for obvious reasons, he's 2-footed. He's just a genius on the ball, probably in the top 2-3 midfielders that I've played with in all-round ability. Up at the top of the diamond would be Mr. Fernandez. It was close between him, just for 5-a-side, between him and Robbo, because Robbo's a penalty box goal scorer, but John would definitely find a spot on my bench, even if I had to leave myself out altogether. But I would go with Fernandez because he could rotate as well, whereas Robbo, predominantly a striker. And the two guys side by side in the middle was Barry and Stevie Tosh. You know, again, Barry could swap with John. Tosher could play anywhere there. Just generally good football players. So, no easy. And you can see why I left myself out, because that's a strong four. That's a strong four with Javi at the back. But I've probably missed boys, you know, and I apologise for that. In 5 years, you play with a lot of players, but it's the ones that maybe have left an indelible mark on me as a teammate and as a person, but also their ability on the park. Mm-hmm. So come back at me if you disagree with any of that. I'm quite happy to debate.
That's a great team.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, it's so interesting, like, hearing players being interviewed about, like, ex-Livingston players. Every single player that's played with Keno has said that he's, like, one of the best players ever. We
all can't be wrong then, eh?
But you know, he just doesn't seem to get the sort of recognition from supporters.
Well, because he maybe the likes he brought on Fernandez with their big moves. But you ask anybody that played in that year in the Premier League, if he wasn't the player of the year, he'd be pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah. He'd certainly be my player of the year, and that's no easy when you've got somebody like Fernandez and Broto. But Keno was, for me, undoubtedly, because he scored some great goals. His ability on the ball, he was never flustered. He played with a smile on his face all the time. Even that mask that he had a smile.
That's amazing.
I asked this to Colin McMenamin last week. So if you think that's sort of your 5-a-side team, you're the manager of that 5-a-side team. Who, out of all the players that you played with, who would you choose as your assistant manager? Who'd be the one to settle everybody down?
We Flea. We've got a good banter with him as well. We Derek. Yeah, that way I've maybe just rekindled our friendship.
There you go. I saved you.
That's it. That's it. I get out a jail card there.
Jake.
Just a quick thing. Like when you mentioned Brotto, always the thing I remembered about him, like balls would come in the box and he would catch the ball with one hand and like twist it round. It was like the most stupid thing ever. You can't imagine keepers doing that. It was in training when you were like, you know, doing set pieces and that. Was he just being a fanny and just catching them with one hand all the time, or was that only for games? Did you see him even trying those things out?
He probably did. But, I can't, from memory, that, as I say, he wasn't short on confidence, but he had the ability to back it up.
Yeah, totally.
You know, so there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence. And I mean, Broto, he probably didn't get a fair crack at Celtic either, let's be honest. But like David with injuries. But his ability, you can see his quality, you know. And I mean, we talked about in the other podcast. He kind of psyched Larson out of that penalty in the 0-0 game because he was telling him where he was going to put it, you know. That's just uber confidence, you know, and it worked. Obviously, he'd looked like a tit, you know, but it didn't, you know. But when you've got somebody like that behind you, it breeds confidence. You've got a top goalkeeper, and it's going to take something special to beat him. And they didn't come much more special than Larson in the Scottish game in the last 20 years. You know, you look at his stats. He did. I don't think he missed many penalties, but thankfully he missed that. But he didn't miss it. Well, Javi's got to get the credit for saving it.
We've decided once again that instead of match, talk about any memorable games St Johnstone and Hamilton ahead of their visit to the Macarena on Saturday and Wednesday, respectively. Owen, what golden nugget have you got in store in your head from either of these opponents?
I'm actually going to bizarrely choose. I don't really have many great memories as such. You know, trying to keep the podcast as positive as possible from Hamilton or from St Johnstone. Unfortunately, I've been to a few games, but never seemed to ever win. I think one of the best games in relation, in some way, to St Johnstone was the Petrofac Cup final at McDermott Park. Beautiful sunny day, roasting hot. Must have been, I mean, exaggerating here, but about 30 degrees Celsius outside. It was the first football game that my now fiance came to as well. And Scotty Pittman scored his first goal for Livingston in that game. It was an absolutely fantastic occasion, absolutely fantastic game, and without a doubt my favourite memory at McDermott Park. I do remember going to a cup game against St Johnstone. I think we were flying in the Championship or the First Division as it probably was at the time, and we went away to St Johnstone and we got beat. I think it was 3-4, probably going on 9-0 to St Johnstone in a midweek cup game. That's my only sort of other memory from St Johnstone. But I'm gonna sort of take the cop out and go for the Petrofac Cup final.
Thomas, any memories?
This was a tough one. No, is the answer. But my best memory of a Hamilton, and it wasn't even a good memory. I'd played for GS in the morning, and it was pissing it down. It was a horrible day. I hadn't got a different. I think I gave my jumper that I was wearing to the keeper I wear during the game. It was that horrible. So I didn't have a jumper to wear. It was freezing cold. So I went to there's a Sports Direct right beside the stadium, I think, and I got the worst Slazenger jumper that you'll ever see in your life. So I bought that, and I went to the game, had a shite pie and a shite coffee, and we got beat. So a shite day all round, to be honest. So much for keeping it positive, eh? But, yeah.
I think this might be a common theme with all these things. Liam, any positivity?
No. I think every time I've been to McDermott Park, other than for the cup final, I've seen Livingston lose. I think every time I've been to New Douglas Park, I've seen Livingston lose. I mean, there was a game against St Johnstone our first season back in the Premiership that I think we were going through a bit of a sticky patch, and I'm pretty sure we went 1-0 down as well. But then we got a fairly quick equaliser. Someone mentioned, I think it might have been Jordan Rind in the group chat, mentioned that there was a game that Alan Lithgow, like the last player you would expect to be able to play a cross like this, but he played a cross in from the left-hand side, and it just, Craig Halkett didn't even have to do anything. It just hit off his head and went in because it was that perfect. And then I think Sibbald scored the other, and then Pittman got a late one, so we beat them 3-1. In terms of Hamilton, Stephen Lawless's goal from about 40 yards, the volley. I remember going to New Douglas Park for a Scottish Cup game, and it was James MacArthur and James McCarthy's first game for Hamilton. And even at like 16, you could see that they were going to boss it. But I think at that time we had Snodgrass and Dorrans. I think we might have won that game, but it was a good game. But I think the majority of the times that I've been to New Douglas Park, especially, I was at the game that Thomas mentioned, and it was horrendous. Like, just every time I go, it's pissing down with rain, it's freezing cold, and we always get beat in the last minute with like some sort of dodgy decision. Oh, I hate them. I hate them. But nah, other than that, no real positivity.
Povey, are you going to save it?
Well, it's a bit of a funny one, and I'm going back to the 2002 season in the League Cup. We came in the round before the quarter-final because we were in Europe that season, obviously. And we had a game against St Johnstone. We were drawn against St Johnstone away, and it's quite infamous. I'm sure many fans remember the fog game. And during the first half, the fog was total descending. Half time, you could barely see the other half. And then during that second half, if memory serves well, I think Alan Main was, and all you could see was Alan Main at first St Johnstone, I think, if memory serves. And you couldn't see past the halfway line. And it took till 79 minutes, and the ref called it off. And we had to. And both managers agreed that they would do a replay. I mean, that was bizarre. I remember it was one of those ones. I actually remember more about that game than the following game when we played them again. And I think there were like free tickets or something. So it actually turned out to be an alright crowd, a away crowd as well. And we beat them 1-0. And I've got a belter, a quote here. I was trying to remember about that game. I was definitely at it, and I was trying to remember the goal. And it was Daddy who scored, Eugene Daddy.
Yes.
But wait till you read this. So you hear this. So with the home defence static, Eugene Daddy pounced, barging teammate Sheriff Turriman aside and stroking the ball in the left corner. And fucking see you later, Sheriff. I was loving that one. So I think that was McNamee had gone down and crossed the ball in. Daddy's obviously gone, bugger off, Sheriff. Barred it in the net. But and then obviously we had the quarter final after that, as I say, but we lost 2-0. So those bloody two games just to get punted out the quarters at home against Dundee United. Sorry, I had to end on a negative to keep the theme going.
Aye. Oh, well, that was a bit of positivity. I mean, again, this is quite tricky for me trying to think of actually proper good memories because they've mostly been shite. Just even talk about when we were at McDermott Park, and I think we were 2-0 up, and became 2-2, and then Lyndon Dykes had the penalty pretty much right at the end. And I think Liam was saying earlier, and I think at the time, I remember Marvin Bartley talking about it on maybe it was a podcast, and he was like, Dykes just goes up and grabs the ball, puts it down, fluffs it, like it's like, it's such a shite penalty. And it was like, it was so bad, and he was like, he's like, wait, do you even take? He's like, I've never even taken a penalty before. He's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And it's obvious, and it's funny because obviously, he's not really been scoring at QPR, but he's been the penalty taker, and he's been scoring quite well there. But I absolutely fluffed it in the last minute. What a fanny, but then turned out to be a total living legend. But that's about it. Honestly, I'm a bit lost for words on those two fixtures, really.
I mean, when I put in the chat this week that this was going to be a talking point, and I mean, you can sort of remember games against Celtic, you can remember games against Aberdeen. Yeah. But then, as soon as I said memories for either St Johnstone or Hamilton, then you start to think, no.
I will throw in just to end on a positive, because it was a 1-0 win. That home game against Hamilton where Lawless scored that screamer. But oh my God, what a boring game! But like straight away scoring a goal like that. And you know what? Like, it was 3 points like that really helped us that season. Finished in the 5th place, But boring game, but it was a good peach of a goal. Goal of the day, wasn't it, on Sky Sports? Wasn't it?
Might have even got into like the goal of the season category
think
on
so.
SPFL. Like, it was an unbelievable strike. But I don't remember anything else from that game.
Not me either.
I know. I was actually pretty steaming at it, to be honest. so you know when if you've had a drink before the game and that, and that game would have lasted long in a sober eye, but my God, it lasted forever when we were pushed. Like, but I tell you what, I would take a 1-0 boring win with a screamer a goal on next week anyway. Next Wednesday, isn't it?
Well, that wraps everything up nicely into a neat little package for this week. Many thanks to David Bingham again for his time. What an absolute pinch me moment that was. Be sure to check out our social media. Twitter and Instagram is just @AmondViewPod, all one word. That's @AmondViewPod. And search for us on Facebook and YouTube by searching Amond View Podcast. And hey, why not subscribe to us on your Spotify's, your aforementioned YouTube, your Apple Pods, to keep up to date when we release new content. Thanks again for listening. Forza Livy, and we hope to see you next week.